ILTS. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Dave Hiltz. I'm legal counsel for the Department of Safety. I've submitted Assistant Commissioner Earl Sweeney's position paper on the subject. He's been able to make it today in case there's something that I leave out. But I just wanted to make 3 brief points based on Assistant Commissioner Sweeney's position paper. All of them have been touched on in some form or fashion so far. One is that the department feels that asking for this bill at this point in time is really unnecessary because the question is, what's the current state of the law? The current state of the law is in the Glick case, which is a U.S. First Circuit Court of Appeals case, which is binding on jurisdictions in New Hampshire, which sets forth the ability of folks to engage in this type of activity under their First Amendment rights. The second thing that I wanted to touch on is something that there was extended discussion about with Deputy Attorney General Ann Rice, which is the phrase physically interfere or physical interference really is quite a loaded phrase that if you explore what that could mean in the context of an interaction with certain public officials, especially police officers, that really does not capture the essence of all the concerns that could flow from a person exercising these rights depending on the circumstances of the stop or the arrest or something of that nature. Glick was very clear that there could be legitimate time, place, and manner restrictions placed on the exercise of these rights. And the facts of the Glick case were specific. In that case, the person who was doing the videotaping was approximately 10 feet away from the action. The court characterized that as a comfortable remove from what was going on in the case, which fed into the court's decision to find that there was a protected activity here. Just to give you another case as a comparison, there's a 2012 U.S. District Court for the District of New Hampshire case, and that, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Bleish, B-L-E-I-S-H versus Moriarty. And I don't mean to oversimplify it because the analysis in that case also hinged a lot on the validity of this sort of a conduct statute. But in terms of what the person who is exercising their rights did in that case, you had certain facts like the person doing the videotaping was within 2 feet of the officers in question that remained in the street after repeated orders to vacate the street and to give more distance between the videotaper and the cruisers. The individual that was doing the taping actually put the camera in one of the officers' faces within less than a foot of the officer's face, and at one point actually reached into the cruiser to do some of the videotaping. So you'll notice in all of those facts, again, there is no actual physical touching going on. So depending on what meaning a person wanted to give to physical interference, I think this bill, if it were to pass, it would be better if more clarity were imported into that phrase. And then the last thing is that that the bill, as it's written, and again, the Deputy Attorney General Ann Rice mentioned this, the non-government officials, the citizens who are the other participant in these transactions, there's no recognition for any rights that they may have, any intimidation that may be going on, any private information that may be developed or given to the government in those transactions. And just in closing, again, there was an example of a DMV worker. The folks at the counter, when they're doing transactions with members of the public and giving out licenses, registrations, all of that information that gets developed is restricted under the Driver Privacy Act, and the public's right to have that information is very, very limited, and it certainly would compromise that aspect of how the state does business and how people expect their information to be treated by the state if a person could stand there and videotape these transactions. I'll do the best I can with the questions, and I do have a card for Assistant Commissioner Sweeney also.
Representative Valancourt.
Yes, I was going to ask you that there seems to be an inherent conflict with what you're telling us, that this bill is unnecessary. You're a lawyer.
Yes.
You're telling us this bill is unnecessary. Lawyer Rice is telling this bill is bad because it goes beyond what is necessary. So there seems to be an inherent conflict in your opposition and Attorney Rice's opposition. So I think I'd like to offer you the opportunity to get together with her and come up with something that you think would take care of those conflicts and make a bill that we could pass.
I mean, just speaking on behalf of the department, I'm really happy to have discussions with the Attorney General's office to try to reconcile, whatever conflicts there may be in a position in response to this bill.
But if I might, don't you agree that there seems to be a problem when you're saying it's unnecessary and they're saying it's beyond necessary?
Well, I agree more with Deputy Attorney General Rice in that, at least in some aspects, it's beyond what's necessary, because that phrase of physical interference certainly is beyond what the Glick court recognized. And then also, as I testified, I do believe that it's problematic that the bill doesn't contemplate what could be the rights of the non-government officials that are involved in these transactions.
And one more briefly, could you comment on the Jay Hamill case and what happened to that citizen of this state?
I'm not able to comment on that.
Do you think we might be able to?
I'm not able to comment on that.
Because it's still pending, or what?
I don't know enough about the facts of the case, and I can't provide legal advice on the subject.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
You know, when the First District Court decided the decision, did Massachusetts have a similar statute to what New Hampshire has now?
I'm not aware of what their statute said. I apologize. I don't know that.
Any other questions for the gentleman? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll call Grant Ian.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you on this important issue today. My name is Garrett Ian. I traveled here from Keene, New Hampshire. I grew up here in Concord, where I've spent the greater portion of my young life, and where I started the blog freeconcord.org, where I continue to publish content. While personally I may find myself partial to identifying as an activist, we all know how limiting labels can be. Not wishing to limit myself, I think it's important to recognize the numerous qualities different styles of activism can take on. Any individual who captures a piece of raw video or audio content in public has committed an act of journalism. The circumstances of the capture only add to or subtract from its relevance, but they make something that is truly a contribution to society. Sometimes these records can change society. Let's consider the Rodney King beating or the Kelly Thomas killing that happened recently. The fact that there's documentation of what actually happened that the actors in the case were not aware of means that we're better able to know what crimes are happening in our society and happening in our names too. When we think of New Hampshire's current confusing statute, let us consider who benefits from how it is manipulated by those in power. It seems that everyone here is confused by it as well. The police are far from being experts on the law. I've lost count of how many police I've had to correct on this law. It got to a point where after I had a phone unlawfully wrenched out of my hand while I was recording in public, that I printed out these little cards with the wiretapping statute on them so I could read them to officers whenever they got it wrong. I've had to pull out this card way too many times. I wish I could say the phone confiscation was the only incident. It was 3 years ago where I've had experience with police acting unlawfully under the guise of this statute, but unfortunately it's not. I've had friends serve months in jail for recording phone conversations while they were doing journalistic reports. You've all heard of what happened to Joe Hamill. I wish to invite you to search out his story, check out the Concord Monitor article, and see how horrible it is what happened to him. He was victimized to the extent that he felt he had to leave town. And this was for overtly recording a Concord bureaucrat. It's not even illegal under the current law. It's been brought up about Robin Hooding in Keene. I was very disappointed with Miss Rice, who mischaracterized Robin Hooding in Keene. And Representative Robertson, I'd also invite you to come Robin Hooding with us if you think that we yell at parking enforcers or we get within 2 feet of them or anything like that. That's nonsense. The court agreed that we stay within the rights and under the boundaries of the law. So, yeah, I'd invite people to come out Robin Hooding if they think that anything unruly is going on. But unfortunately, as many of you know, myself and my friends were sued by the city of Keene for our activities of filling meters. We weren't sued for filling the meters and denying the city of revenue. We were sued in the name of contractual interference. The alleged contractual interference was that we were trying to get parking enforcers to quit their jobs. I never said I wanted parking enforcers to quit their jobs. I was just out filling meters, having conversations. But somehow my name got dragged into that lawsuit too. So I wanted to have a meeting with the city attorney prior to this case going to court. So back in May, I met with city attorney Tom Mullins, and he said he would meet with me to discuss the case as long as it wasn't audio recorded, but that it was allowed to be on the record and I could take notes. So I met with him, I took extensive notes, and then I created a mock-up transcript of our meeting. A few weeks later, I'm about to go out to go Robin Hooding one morning. My friends and my roommates are on the porch, and we notice that there's an unmarked state police car that's circling the block, not being very conspicuous. I snapped some photos of this car, and it drives off after seeing me. So then I headed downtown. When I got about a block away from my house, the car was waiting to ambush me, and did. 2 state troopers in plain clothes got out of the car, never said my name, but ordered me to stop and said that they had a warrant for me. They were seizing all of my electronic devices. Fortunately, all I had on me at the time was my beloved Canon Vixia. This was confiscated and spent 2 months in police custody. When it was returned to me, I noticed there was some vandalism. They'd written in Sharpie underneath it. There was never any evidence of a crime. In fact, I wasn't even allowed to know why it was that my camera was taken for about a month and a half, because the warrant was sealed. Why was the warrant sealed? Was this a case in which there were confidential informants that maybe whose identities needed protected? Absolutely not. In fact, the warrant didn't really have anything that constituted probable cause in it. The only reason my camera and my electronic devices were taken from me, well, only one device ended up getting confiscated, but the only reason was that the city attorney alleged that I must have remembered too much of the conversation. I don't know about you guys, but I have a background in criminal justice. I went to school for criminology, and that doesn't sound like probable cause to me. Your account of an interaction looks too accurate, so we're going to seize your electronics. They found no evidence that there was any illegal recording, and needless to say, I'm following up with an attorney on that. The Robin Hooding case has been brought up, and the idea of some of the other speakers, Miss Rice, the last gentleman, they began to conflate audio recording with assault. They began to say, well, if we allow people to audio record, they're just going to get up in people's faces. They're just going to stick cameras in people's cars. It'll be chaos. Assault is still illegal. Holding things in front of someone's face is still a form of assault or threatening. You're not supposed to behave in that manner, so the idea that people who do use these journalistic tools would somehow become criminals if they had more freedoms to use the tools, that's ludicrous. So, in addition to Robin Hooding, one of the activities I engage in that involves a lot of videotaping, I also participated in the 2013 Police Accountability Tour with my good friend Pete Eyre. We traveled around the country and went to different places where there were instances of police abuse and tried to follow up on those stories. Unfortunately, there's a major chilling effect here in New Hampshire. You can't covertly record in many places. Now, taking into account that in police stations they have signs up on the walls that say you're being audio and video recorded, you don't have to inform anyone if you're recording there, it's understood. But all it took was myself and my friend Pete walking into a police station in New Orleans, and a press release went out by the police there saying that there are these people in town, they record police, be careful. Now the thing is, New Orleans and Louisiana have some of the most corrupt authorities probably in the world. We were investigating stories where the police were killing people, disposing of bodies, having people, their superiors covering up.
The bill, please.
Okay, sure. It was kind of scary reporting on those incidents of people that kill people, yet I felt safe knowing that I couldn't be bothered for recording because Louisiana is a single-party consent state. It's not illegal to record other people there. And considering the amount of corruption, it's so important there that people are able to record their interactions with others. This two-party recording being labeled wiretapping, it's a misapplication of the word. Wiretapping implies that there is some sort of like going into someone's electronics, hacking, etc. The idea that you can record just walking around and that's wiretapping, where's the wire involved? Another reason this law is absurd is it's archaic, it's misguided, because anybody can unintentionally violate it. Anybody that has a camera, video, still photo, you're going to accidentally shoot some video, record some audio that you didn't mean to record, and then you'll notice and probably just delete it. There's a saying, the camera is the new gun. If you accidentally discharge a firearm, it's a big deal. If you accidentally discharge a camera, it's not. It's perfectly safe. So that's why all right, getting to my conclusion. There's this item is more threatening to the corrupt officials or just corrupt individuals, criminals, than a firearm or any other combat weapon. This tool can get you thrown in prison in New Hampshire, yet it's able to expose the crimes of other people in a way that nothing else can. If I'm able to see something, if I'm able to hear it, it is my human right to document it. Unfortunately, my eyes can't record and my ears can't record, but human beings have worked, and now we have the technology and the tools. Let us use them. So another revelation that's come up in the past year. We're all being spied on. We're all being wiretapped all the time. We now know this. We didn't know this a year ago, but it's been released thanks to a brave man named Edward Snowden. The state that claims to protect us, the empire in D.C., is violating New Hampshire law, presumably, but I don't really mind that because I don't think the law is legitimate. However, it is important to recognize that if something can be recorded, we should understand that it could be recorded, which means I want to be able to record it as well. I can under the current law. Please do the right thing and recognize that this bill is weak but well-intended and that New Hampshire should move in the direction of one-party consent. That is in the interest of promoting journalistic freedom. And think of, you can't do certain journalistic reports in New Hampshire. You can't do a report going into a place that maybe is doing bad business deals and record what they're doing because it's illegal. It's illegal to do journalism. If for some reason you aren't interested in legalizing recording for residents of New Hampshire, I would invite you to please send a public message to the powers in the District of Columbia that you no longer require their services. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is your job an investigator from what you were talking of your testimony?
Sure, I've played that capacity before.
No, I mean, are you a registered investigator that somebody would...
I've never been paid for investigations, no.
Are you a registered one?
Representative Allen Court.
I like to think we all are investigators. We've heard
We all
it
can.